Two Heads Are Better is the third wing in the Liberation of Undermine raid. It is home to Vixie and the Geargrinders, the One Armed Bandit, and MugZee. Very quickly, I'm going to describe how this guide is set up. The video is split into chapters for each boss. You can find them down below. The first chapter will describe the boss fight mechanics and each of the important abilities, and the second chapter will be role-specific duties. LFR and Normal are practically identical, but I will mention any important differences. Vexie and the Geargrinders. This is a single-phase fight with an intermission. The main mechanic here is not allowing the boss to reach 100 energy by crashing bikes into the boss, destroying its protective plating. Phase 1. Vexie's tank starts the battle with 4 stacks of protective plating. Let's cover how to remove this plating. Vexie will use Call Bikers, where red lines will appear across the arena. Bikers will then race across the arena until they crash into the wall. Once they crash into the wall, they are stunned and must be killed. After the rider is killed, the bikes become interactable. Click on it and you'll jump onto the bike. This will give you an extra action bar. Press number 1 and line up your bike with the boss. Hold it until it finally casts. The bike launches into the boss, destroying one of its protective plating. This also deals a burst of raid damage and throws shrapnel, which must be avoided. After all the plating is destroyed, the intermission will start, but first let's cover the other abilities. Spew Oil will target a few players, watch your ring, and keep away from others until it expires. Incendiary Fire will track and launch fireballs at a few players for about 6 seconds. Run away from the raid if you're targeted. Exhaust Fumes will apply a 6-second dot to the raid. This increases in damage with each use. Finally, the tank mechanic is literally called Tank Buster. This deals damage, knocks you backwards, and applies a bleed. This tank debuff lasts for 25 seconds, so taunt swap after each hit. Phase 1's abilities. Protective Plating. This shields the boss and generates energy. It's removed by crashing bikes into it, and once broken, triggers the intermission. Call Bikers. Bikers charge across the arena shown by red lines until crashing into a wall. Deals damage to anyone caught in its path. Blaze of Glory. Players that take control of the bikes use this. It smashes into the boss, removing a protective plating, dealing a burst of raid damage and throwing shrapnel marked by red circles. Spew Oil. Players marked with a purple circle, deals damage and applies a 12-second dot. Incendiary Fire. This launches fireballs at players, tracking their location for 6 seconds. It deals damage to anyone that's hit inside the circles. Exhaust Fumes. This applies a 6-second dot to the raid. It increases in damage with each use. Tank Buster. This knocks the tank backwards, applying a bleed and a 200% damage increase debuff that lasts for 25 seconds. The intermission. Once all the protective plating has been removed, the boss enters mechanical breakdown. The boss no longer moves and takes 100% more damage for 45 seconds, or for however long it takes the boss to repair its plating. The boss summons a bunch of ads that will attempt to repair the boss. They need to be interrupted, stunned, and killed ASAP, otherwise they speed up the repair of the boss. The only last note is that the boss will deal raid damage every 2 seconds until it is fully repaired. The intermission's abilities. Mechanical Breakdown. This triggers once the protective plating is removed. The boss becomes immobile and takes 100% more damage. Tune Up. This summons a bunch of pit mechanics that attempt to repair the boss. Their repair ability is interruptible. Backfire. The boss deals raid damage every 2 seconds until repaired. Role-specific duties. Tanks. Keep the boss centered as much as possible. Swap after each tank buster. During the intermission, stun and interrupt as many ads as possible. Healers. Expect ramping raid damage with each Exhaust Fumes. Spew Oil targets will need extra healing over the next 12 seconds. Expect a burst of raid damage as bikes smash into the boss. During the intermission, expect raid damage every 2 seconds until it ends. DPS. Defeat bikers quickly and use their bikes to destroy the boss's plating. Stay away from people if you have a circle. During the intermission, interrupt, stun, CC the ads, and kill them ASAP. Also, save your big damage cooldowns for this double damage moment. The One Armed Bandit. This is a 2-phase fight that requires good coordination, awareness, and ad management. The raid must deposit tokens into the boss. Each token combination triggers different effects, and failing to deposit tokens or depositing the same combination twice results in a wipe. There is a lot of information here because of the token combinations. We're going to cover the token combinations last. Just listen to the combinations, but don't worry about remembering them all. I'll give you a very short and sweet summary at the end. Phase 1. Let's discuss the main mechanic first. The boss will use Spin to win at 100 energy. He will stand still and channel this for 35 seconds. 3 ads will jump down from the stands and they will each have a different icon above their head. This icon identifies which token they drop when they are defeated. There are 4 tokens: a bomb, fire, coins, and lightning. Once defeated, a player just has to walk over top of the token to pick it up, take the token to the boss, and use your extra action button to deposit it inside the boss. The 2 main points here are: 1. You must deposit 2 tokens before the 35 seconds is up, and 2. You must deposit different combinations. Failure to do these will result in a wipe. So let's talk about the ads and other abilities, and then we will dive into the combinations. The ads have 3 abilities, but only 2 matter. Overload is the most important and must be interrupted. This deals heavy raid-wide damage. Withering Flames is a dispellable debuff that deals damage to players over 15 seconds. Once it's dispelled, it shoots out flames from that player's location that needs to be avoided. Now the boss's other abilities. Pay line. The boss will roll out giant coins in one direction, shown by this blue line. You want to avoid these, but if you stand close to the line, you'll actually be buffed for 15 seconds, increasing damage, healing, and movement speed. Once these coins reach the wall, they fall over and explode with ring. After the explosion, players will need to run over to the down coin and interact with it to roll it again. You can roll it wherever you want, but they have to be rolled. Each coin on the ground buffs the boss's damage by 5%. After a player rolls the coin, it is destroyed. Foul Exhaust is his other ability that deals quick raid damage over 1.5 seconds. This also applies a healing absorb that needs to be cleared. Players will take continuous damage while this absorb is active. His tank mechanic is called the Big Hit. He will wind up and charge before smashing the tank. The tank targeted should run to the outside wall quickly, as once the hit lands, it leaves behind a large shocking field area. Tanks should swap after each hit. Tanks can also remove 2 of these shocking fields by activating a coil. Coils are created by the tokens, which is discussed later. Okay, now let's actually cover the combos. Bomb and Shock, Bomb and Flame, Bomb and Coin. All 3 of these summon adds that must be killed. They are somewhat different, but it really comes down to the exact same thing. Kill them ASAP. Bomb and Shock, they only chase players. Bomb and Coin, they have much more HP. Bomb and Fire, they send out fire waves when they are killed. Now let's cover the shock combos. Each shock combo puts a coil on the floor. This is where the attack comes from, and these coils can also be interacted with, but I'll cover that in just a minute. Shock and Flame will place a coil that sends out fiery waves that have to be avoided. Shock and Coin drops a magnet coil that will pull players towards them for 5 seconds. Just a note, Shock and Bomb does drop a coil. That's where the bombs actually spawn from. The final minor combo is Flame and Coin. This just deals unavoidable raid damage over 8 seconds. Finally, let's talk about the coils. Any player can interact with these, but it's best for the tanks to handle it as it deals a big chunk of damage to whoever touches it. Activating a coil does 2 things. First, it absorbs 2 of the closest shocking fields, removing them from the floor. And second, it triggers whichever mechanic is associated with it. So ideally, you want to activate any coil that doesn't have a bomb. In the next section, I will have a chart that you can pause and look at with a complete breakdown of each combo. Just know that the chart is also present on my downloadable cheat sheets. Links, of course, are down below. Now for the short and sweet summary of the tokens. If you're being pulled, run away. If you see fire waves, avoid them. If you see ads, kill them. As a final note, it really helps to have one person call out which tokens should be deposited. Phase 2 starts when the boss is close to 30% HP. Phase 1's abilities. Spin to win. This is the 100 energy attack. The boss will stand still for 35 seconds while 3 ads jump down, and these attendants will drop tokens which must be deposited to end this mechanic. The real assistants, they carry the tokens and drop them once defeated. They have 3 attacks. Overload is interruptible and deals raid damage. Withering Flame applies a 15-second dispellable dot that sends out fire waves, and Electric Blast just applies a stacking dot to players that are hit. Payline. This rolls large coins in a general direction. It buffs players that stand next to the line, increasing damage and healing done, plus movement speed for the next 15 seconds. Coins must be rolled again by players or they increase the boss's damage by 5%. Foul Exhaust. This deals quick raid damage over 1.5 seconds and applies a healing absorb. Players take damage until the absorb is cleared. The Big Hit. The boss charges his attack and smacks the tank. The tank hit leaves behind a shocking field effect, and it applies a 30-second damage debuff. The token combinations. I'm not listing these. Pause here to read the sheet for a breakdown of each combo. Phase 2. This game is rigged. Once the boss is close to 30% HP, cheat to win triggers. Now instead of depositing tokens, the boss spins his own reels. This is a DPS race as the 4th reel spin will result in a wipe. The first combo is All Lightning, which will drop a lightning coil. This knocks back all players and tethers a lightning beam to the boss. Do not touch this. This will pretty much kill you. The boss will summon more of these coils, so stay aware. The second combo is All Fire, which will mark a few players, and after a couple seconds, the boss will shoot a fire beam at them, so stay spaced out. The third combo is All Coins. This just deals raid damage every 2 seconds until he hits his 4th combo, which is All Bombs. This just wipes the raid. The tank mechanic and the rolling coins still exist in this phase, so handle them accordingly. Role specific duties. Tanks. Taunt swap after each big hit and drop your shocking field against the wall. Keep moving the boss around as needed. Use the coil to clear some shocking field, just pop a defensive before activating. During phase 2, be aware of positioning with the coils as the lightning beam will one-shot people. Healers. Stand close to the rolling coins to get the buff. Expect quick bursts of raid damage with Foul Exhaust and quickly heal through the absorbs. Expect constant bursts of raid damage once tokens are deposited and abilities are triggered. Make sure you're dispelling Withering Flames. During phase 2, expect increasing ramping damage as this phase goes on. DPS. Stand close to the rolling coins to get the buff and be sure to interact with the coins to get rid of them. Interrupt real assistant ads and kill them quickly to get their tokens. Deposit different token combinations into the boss. Bomb ads are the top priority to kill. During phase 2, watch out for the lightning beam and save your defenses for scattered payout. MugZee. This is a two-phase fight with a brief intermission. The arena is split into two sections, a left and a right. During phase 1, the raid is going to move the boss between these sections to prevent him from reaching 100 energy. Mechanics change depending on the side of the arena that you're on. The intermission is just about surviving, and phase 2 is a DPS race with a combination of all of his abilities, so save your lust for phase 2. Phase 1. The arena is split in half. The right side is Mug and the left side is Z. You can start with whichever side you want. Each side has their own set of mechanics. There are a few things to keep in mind for switching. First, if the boss reaches 100 energy, he wipes the raid. So you want to switch between 90 and 95 energy. Second, the boss does not have to actually cross the line. It is based off of the raid. So if most players run to the other side, it will trigger the boss to switch. Third, each time MugZee switches sides, he will deal a bunch of raid damage over 6 seconds and apply a debuff that constantly ticks damage. This debuff stacks, so the more you switch sides, the more raid damage is going to go out. One final note, every 5 seconds, the boss gains a stack of Moxie. This increases the boss's damage by 1% with each stack. Each time you switch sides, it does remove 10 stacks of Moxie. Now let's cover the sides, starting with the left side, Z. Z's mechanics. 2 towers will appear that need to quickly be destroyed. This constantly launches chain lightning at players. Once the tower reaches 80% HP, it's briefly stunned and takes double damage, making it easier to deal with. Second, the boss will spawn a bunch of crawler mines that will fixate players. Players need to detonate these, but stagger the detonations. Each detonation deals a burst of raid damage and applies a healing absorb. This healing absorb stacks, which is why you want to be cautious in detonating them. The boss will also summon a Rocketeer, which targets one player and needs to be soaked by at least 5 people. The person targeted should run this soak to the wall as it will leave behind a fire zone. His next ability is a Spray and Pray attack. This targets and tracks one player. Everyone else should move away from the cone. The final ability is tank related. The boss will target a random player with a red line. This player needs to stand still as the tank needs to stand between you and the boss to soak the shot. After it goes off, the player that was targeted will have a ring around them that will explode after a few seconds, so stay away from others. The tank that's soaking should pop a defensive because it reduces the amount of damage done to the player that was targeted. The tank also has a 45-second debuff applied to them, so the swap should happen right after this goes off. As the last note, all of these abilities will detonate crawler mines if they are hit, so be aware of where they are. Now, let's switch to the right side. Mug's mechanics. The main mechanic here is Earthshaker Gowl. 2 players will have brown soaks targeted on them. Ideally, you want to place these circles close, but not overlapping. You also want at least 4 to 5 players in each soak. Players inside will be trapped with an Earth Elemental. Those players will need to quickly kill this ad and interrupt their Pay Respects ability, as it shields the boss. The ad only has a frontal cone attack, so just avoid these and you shouldn't be in any real danger of dying. Once killed, the elemental will explode, knocking players backwards, breaking the walls where they can rejoin the fight. 2 more minor abilities. Frost Shatter Boots. Several players' feet are encased in ice, causing them to slide around for a few seconds. Storm Fury Finger Gun targets and tracks one player. Everyone should move away and watch for the circles. For tanks, make sure you keep the boss away from the Earth Elementals as he will enrage them. Molten Gold Knuckles is his tank buster. This is a frontal cone attack, so keep the boss facing away from the raid. It will knock you back and apply a golden drip debuff. Taunt swap after each use. The tank with the debuff needs to run around the arena wall until the stacks fall off. You'll leave gold pools on the ground. If you don't remove all the stacks, you'll be stunned for 30 seconds. Phase 1's abilities. Moxie. MugZee's damage increases by 1% every 5 seconds. 10 stacks of Moxie are removed when the raid switches sides. When Z takes charge, which is the left side of the arena, Uncontrolled Destruction. This triggers when Z takes over. Deals raid damage over 6 seconds and applies Uncontrolled Burn, which is a debuff that ticks damage every half second and lasts for 10 minutes. MK2 Electroshocker. These are the 2 towers that cast Chain Lightning until they're destroyed. They are temporarily stunned at 80% HP and take double damage for 8 seconds. Unstable Crawler Mines. These are ads that fixate players. When touched, they explode, dealing raid damage and applying a healing absorb that deals damage until cleared. This absorb can stack. These are also detonated if hit by any other boss's ability. Goblin Guided Rocket. This targets one player and must be soaked by at least 5 people. This leaves behind a fire zone that deals damage to anybody that walks through it. Spray and Pray. This targets and tracks one player with a large cone. This deals quick damage over 3 seconds. The Double Whammy Shot. This targets a random player with a red line. The tank must soak this with a defensive. Unmitigated damage hits the targeted player and then they explode after 6 seconds, dealing additional damage to anyone inside the ring. The tank suffers the damage as a 45-second debuff that ticks damage every 1.5 seconds. When Mug takes charge. This is the right side of the arena. Elemental Carnage. This triggers when Mug takes over. It deals raid damage over 6 seconds and applies Elemental Calamity, which is a debuff that ticks damage every 1.5 seconds, lasting for 10 minutes. Earthshaker Gowl. 2 players are marked with a soak attack. Players inside are trapped with an elemental. The elemental has 4 abilities. Pay Respects, which is an interruptible cast that will shield the boss for 10 seconds. Shakedown, which is a frontal cone attack. Gal Break, which triggers when killed. This knocks players backwards and through any walls. Enraged, this triggers if the elementals overlap, the boss is too close, or there are no players within melee range of the mob. It increases their damage and speed by 500%. Frost Shatter Boots. Targeted players have feet bound in ice for 8 seconds. This causes players to slide and deals damage to anyone inside the ring. Storm Fury Finger Gun. This targets and tracks one player with a beam. This deals damage over 4 seconds and also marks the ground for lightning strikes. Molten Gold Knuckles. This hits the tank with a frontal cone and knocks them backwards. Applies a 30 stack debuff called Golden Drip. With each step, the debuff falls off, leaving gold pools that slow and deal damage. If not removed, the player is stunned for 30 seconds. The Intermission. At 40% HP, the Intermission will trigger. The boss will pick a location and charge. Once he stops, he begins spinning in place, dealing heavy damage to anyone in his line of fire. The raid should quickly follow the boss and rotate around with him away from his arms. While spinning, multiple circles will be present, and if hit, you will be briefly stunned. The boss will do this 3 times before starting Phase 2. Phase 2. Phase 2 is a combination of all of his abilities, except you no longer have to switch sides. The boss pops Bloodlust, increasing his haste by 30%, and it's a DPS race to kill him before he reaches 100 energy, because if he does, he wipes the raid. So this is also the best time to lust. Role-specific duties. Tanks. Taunt swap after Molten Gold Knuckles and the double whammy shot. Run your Golden Drip on the outside of the arena. Keep the boss away from gals and the crawlers. During Phase 2, damage will constantly ramp up, and the sides don't matter, so just be aware of your positioning. Healers. Raid damage ramps the longer the raid stays on each side. Expect consistent raid damage when you're switching sides. Expect constant healing absorbs when detonating crawler mines. And during Phase 2, damage will continue to ramp. DPS. Soak for the gals and kill and interrupt them as quickly as possible. Staggerly detonate the crawler mines. Soak the goblin rocket near the edge of the arena. Quickly burn down the towers. During Phase 2, actively utilize your defenses. Congratulations, you just cleared the 3rd wing of the Liberation of Undermine raid. Shout out to these channel members. If this video helped, then press the thumbs up. Subscribe if you enjoy WoW content. I have plenty of guides, tips and tricks, podcasts, and more. You can show extra support by becoming a channel member. It's 99 cents a month and gives you early ad-free access to all my videos. I'll see you in the final wing.